An 18-year-old boy was thrown out of a small-town store in front of everyone. Humiliated, he walked away in tears. 5 years later, he returned, not to ask for work, but to buy the entire store. Have you ever been humiliated so deeply that it changed who you became? Some wounds never heal. They become the reason people change their lives. The humiliation Elias faced that night became the spark that shaped his future. What happened over the next 5 years will stay with you long after this story ends. The year was 1912. Hidden among the rolling wheat fields of Willow Creek, Kansas, stood a quiet farming village where life was simple, but never easy. People measured a man's future by the land he owned and the family he was born into. If you were poor, most believed you'd stay poor. No one believed that more than the people who knew Elias Carter. Elias was 18. He lived with his widowed mother, Sarah, in a weathered wooden cabin at the edge of town. The roof leaked whenever it rained. The fireplace burned more often than the cooking pot. Some nights, Sarah quietly pretended she wasn't hungry so her son could eat the last piece of bread. Elias noticed every time. He simply never said a word. Every morning before sunrise, he worked wherever he could, repairing fences, stacking hay, chopping firewood. He never complained, but he carried a dream no one else could see. Sometimes, after a long day's work, he climbed the hill overlooking Willow Creek and stared toward the distant railway that disappeared into the horizon. He often whispered the same words. There has to be a bigger life than this. The villagers laughed whenever they heard him speak that way. Dreams won't fill an empty stomach, son, an old farmer once joked. Another man smiled and added, boys born with empty pockets usually grow into men with empty pockets. Elias didn't argue. He simply smiled and went back to work, because deep down, he believed they were wrong. He just didn't know how to prove it. Then, one cold October evening, everything changed. Sarah collapsed beside the fireplace. Her breathing became shallow. The village doctor examined her, then quietly folded a prescription into Elias's hand. She needs this medicine tonight, he said softly. Don't wait until morning. Elias reached into every pocket he had. Nothing, not a single coin. For the first time in his life, hope didn't seem enough. He pulled on his old coat and ran into the darkness, determined to find work before the night was over. Some moments don't break your body, they break your pride. And sometimes, that's exactly where a new life begins. The cold wind swept through Willow Creek as Elias knocked on every door he could think of. He offered to chop firewood, carry grain, repair fences, anything. Each answer was the same. I'm sorry, son, not tonight. The church bell struck 9. Time was running out. Then Elias looked across the town square. The brightest building in the village still had its lamps burning. Brooks General Store. It was the largest business in Willow Creek, owned by Jonathan Brooks, a merchant respected for his success, but known for keeping business separate from sympathy. Elias took a deep breath and stepped inside. The store was warm. Customers laughed as they filled baskets with flour, sugar, and coffee. Jonathan looked up from the counter. What can I do for you, son? Elias removed his hat. Mr. Brooks, my mother is very sick. I don't want charity. Give me any work. I'll unload wagons, sweep the floors, work all night if I have to. I only need enough to buy her medicine. Jonathan studied the thin young man standing before him. You've worked in a store before? No, sir. Driven freight? No, sir. Lifted supply barrels? I'll learn. A few customers exchanged doubtful smiles. Jonathan sighed. I need experienced men, Elias. I'm sorry. Elias didn't move. He swallowed the lump in his throat. Please, sir, if I go home without that medicine. For a brief second, Jonathan hesitated. Then another customer called for assistance. His patience disappeared. I've already given you my answer. He gently but firmly guided Elias toward the door. I have a business to run. The heavy wooden door closed. The laughter inside continued. But outside, everything was silent. Elias stood in the empty street, staring at the store sign. Not with hatred, not even with anger, only disappointment. Then he whispered to himself, one day, I'll become the kind of man who never turns away someone willing to work. Before dawn, he returned home. He sat beside his mother's bed and held her hand until the first light entered the room. That morning, Elias made the hardest decision of his life. He packed a small canvas bag, kissed his mother on the forehead, and left Willow Creek in search of a future neither of them had ever been given. A dream sounds beautiful from a distance, But the road toward it is often lonely, painful, and filled with moments when quitting feels easier than continuing. The city was nothing like Elias had imagined. The streets were crowded, the buildings were enormous, and nobody cared that a poor farm boy from Willow Creek had arrived with a dream. To the city, Elias was just another young man searching for a chance. His first job was washing dishes at a small roadside diner. The work was exhausting. His hands stayed wet all day. The kitchen heat burned his face. But every night, he saved a few coins. Not for comfort, for a better future. When the diner closed, Elias worked at the railway yard unloading heavy crates. Some nights, his back hurt so much that he could barely walk to his small rented room. But before sleeping, he did something unusual. He studied. While other workers spent their evenings relaxing, Elias borrowed books from the local library. He read about business, trade, and how successful merchants built their companies. He didn't have money that he didn't have connections, but he had something many wealthy people lacked: the hunger to learn. Months passed. Then Elias found an opportunity. While delivering supplies, he noticed a problem. Small stores outside the city struggled to receive goods. Large companies ignored them because their orders were too small. Transportation was expensive. Delivery was unreliable. Most people saw a problem. Elias saw a possibility. With his small savings, he bought a few basic supplies and started delivering them himself. His first week felt like a dream. Then reality arrived. A heavy storm destroyed part of his shipment. One shopkeeper refused to pay. Another told him, "You're a nice young man, Elias, but kindness doesn't make a business successful." That night, Elias sat alone in his tiny room. The coins on the table were barely enough for tomorrow's meal. For the first time in years, he wondered if the villagers had been right. Maybe dreams really were only dreams. He looked at the rain hitting the window. Then he remembered his mother's tired hands and the promise he made when that store door closed behind him. Slowly, Elias stood up. He folded his papers, put on his coat, and whispered, "One failure is not the end of my story." The next morning, he started again. The world notices success at the finish line, but it rarely sees the thousands of invisible steps that happen before it. Elias stopped waiting for the perfect moment. He simply kept moving. Every morning before sunrise, he loaded his small wagon and traveled from store to store. Some days he earned only a few dollars. Some days he earned nothing. But he never broke his promise to himself. He treated every customer with respect. If he made a mistake, he admitted it. If someone needed extra time to pay, he was patient. Slowly, people began to notice. "That Carter boy always keeps his word," one shopkeeper said. Another replied, "His wagon may be small, but his reputation is growing." Months turned into years. The small delivery service that began with a few boxes became something much bigger. The day Elias hired his first employee, he stood outside his tiny rented office for several minutes. It wasn't a grand building. It wasn't impressive. But to him, it was proof. A boy who once had nothing was now creating something of his own. A year later, he bought his first horse and wagon. The old wagon had faded paint and noisy wheels. But when Elias held the reins for the first time, he smiled. Because he remembered walking into the city with only a small bag and a broken heart. Now he was building a future with his own hands. 5 years after leaving Willow Creek, Elias Carter had become one of the most trusted wholesale suppliers in the county. But despite his success, one memory still remained. A wooden door, a cold night, and a young boy standing outside, promising himself that one day he would return. Then, one autumn morning, Elias looked toward the road leading back to Willow Creek. It was time, not to prove anything, not to seek revenge, but to finally face the chapter of his life he had never forgotten. The windows were dusty. A small notice hung on the door, "Property available for sale." Elias stepped inside. Behind the counter sat Jonathan Brooks. The proud merchant he remembered was gone. In his place was an older, tired man carrying the weight of his mistakes. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Jonathan looked up. "Elias Carter." His voice was quiet. "I never thought I would see you again." Elias nodded. "I came back because I wanted to see the place where my life changed." Jonathan lowered his eyes. "I was wrong that night." He took a deep breath. "I thought being successful meant being better than others. I didn't realize that a person's true worth is shown by how they treat those who have nothing." Elias looked around the old store. For a moment, he remembered the pain, the embarrassment, the feeling of standing outside that door with no hope. A part of him wanted Jonathan to feel the same pain. But then he remembered his mother's words. Never allow someone's bitterness to poison your own heart. A few days later, the village gathered as the announcement was made. The new owner of Brooks General Store was Elias Carter. Everyone expected him to celebrate his victory over the man who once rejected him. Instead, Elias walked toward Jonathan and said, "This store needs someone who understands it. If you are willing, I want you to help me rebuild it." Jonathan looked at him in disbelief. "After everything I did," Elias smiled, "that night changed my life. But I don't want my success to be built on anger." The old merchant's eyes filled with tears, because the boy he once pushed away had returned as a man far greater than he ever imagined. Years later, parents in Willow Creek told their children two stories about that store. One was about the night a poor boy was turned away. The other was about the day that same boy returned and chose kindness when revenge would have been easier. Years later, the people of Willow Creek no longer remembered Elias as the poor boy who was turned away. They remembered him as the man who made sure no honest person would ever be turned away again. Because true success isn't measured by the doors you walk through, but by the doors you open for others. Every story has the power to change a life. If this one meant something to you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear it.